Hey everyone. So let's talk about something that every single one of us has, just like physical health, but it's often way less understood. I'm talking about our mental health. It's a huge part of being human, and today we're going to try to get the full picture.
So, really ask you something right off the bat. When you hear that phrase, mental health, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Just take a second to think about it. If you immediately thought of things like depression or anxiety or other disorders, you're definitely not alone. For a lot of people, that's exactly what the term means. But here's the thing, that's only one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle.
To really get it, we kind of have to shift our thinking. So instead of seeing mental health as this black and white thing, like either you're sick or you're well, it's way more helpful to think of it as a continuum, a spectrum that we're all on. So what does this spectrum look like? Well, on one end, you've got mental disorders, those conditions that can really seriously impact our lives. But way over on the other end, you've got positive mental health. That's a state of flourishing, where we're feeling content and fulfilled. But the most important idea here is that none of us just stay in one spot. We all move up and down this spectrum all throughout our lives. So what's pushing and pulling us along this path? Well, it's a whole mix of things. Part of it is our genetic makeup and how we grew up. That kind of sets a baseline. But then our current life circumstances, our jobs, our relationships, our finances, and just the everyday stresses we're dealing with. They're constantly nudging us one way or the other. Okay, so we've talked about this whole spectrum idea, but let's zoom in on that positive end for a minute. What does it actually mean to be in a state of well-being? What does that really look like and feel like in day-to-day life? The World Health Organization actually has a fantastic definition for this. They describe it as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. The key takeaway there is that it's not just about feeling happy, it's about functioning well in the world. So to break that down into simpler terms, being mentally healthy is about being resilient, right? Being able to bounce back when things get tough. It's about feeling like you have some control over your life, feeling confident, and just generally feeling good about yourself. It's also about knowing how to manage your emotions and express them, and being able to build and keep good relationships with people. Now, of course, it is completely 100% normal to feel sad or worried or stressed sometimes. That's just part of being human. But when do those feelings cross a line? There's a sort of tipping point where they can turn into a mental health problem that really needs our attention. And the key difference between just a normal emotion and a potential problem really comes down to three things. How severe is it? How long does it stick around? And what's the impact? When those feelings become really intense, they just won't go away, and they start getting in the way of your daily life, your work, your relationships, you name it, that's a big red flag. That's something more serious might be going on. And just ignoring these problems can have really serious consequences. When they're left untreated, mental health disorders can become chronic, long-lasting issues. They're often linked with increased disability and can really mess with our ability to handle our responsibilities at home, with our friends, and at work. So here's the crazy part. We actually have really effective, proven treatments and therapies that can help people manage their symptoms and get back on track. But, and this is a big but, very few people who could benefit from them actually get that help. So why not? Well, there are a few pretty big hurdles that stand in the way. There's the stigma around it, of course. Sometimes it's just a lack of understanding of what's even happening. And on top of that, people might not know where to even start to get help, and they're often afraid of what might happen if they tell someone what they're going through. And of all of those barriers, the research is pretty clear. Stigma is the single biggest reason people don't get help when they need it. That fear of being judged, of being seen differently, it's just incredibly powerful, and it stops so many people from getting support. So this brings us to a really, really important point. Fixing this isn't just up to doctors and therapists. It's actually a responsibility that every single one of us shares in how we think about and talk about mental health. This is why it is so crucial that we all just acknowledge the simple fact that we all have mental health. Every one of us. It's a universal human experience, not something that only happens to other people. And because it's universal, we all have a personal responsibility to learn about our own well-being. Understanding what we need to do to improve and maintain our mental health, that is absolutely essential if we want to lead meaningful and satisfying lives. So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. After everything we've talked about, The spectrum, well-being, all the barriers. What does maintaining your own mental well-being look like for you? What are the small, real things you can do to help yourself stay on the thriving end of that spectrum? It's a question really worth exploring. Thanks for tuning in.